I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents.
As wars rage overseas, a local group looks for other answers.
We're really concerned to get a handle on this. Why is this happening, and what do we need to do about it?
A first for the Brooklyn Diocese involving priests and deacons. We'll find out what it's all about.
They spoke about the need for a joint convocation, first in our history.
And they're Brooklyn's shining stars, immigrants who give back to the church and the community.
This award means a lot. It makes you proud of your faith. It makes you proud of your religion. It makes you proud of your heritage. It means so much to me.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us this Monday night. Differences of faith, arguments over land. When we talk about war, these issues are frequently at the heart of the battles. But for many countries, the cause of conflict may just surprise you.
And although it's something that's overlooked, it's not lost on one local group. Pax Christi of the metropolitan New York area held its fall assembly this weekend at St. Francis College in Brooklyn Heights. We sent our cameras to check it out.
As people who long for peace, we come together very often to study the causes of war and how perhaps we could stop it. This afternoon, we're going to turn our attention to a less noticed aspect of war. War that is being caused by the increasing shortage of water in the world. I'll give you an example. In June, there was an article in the New York Times that said that India is building a dam on a river in Kashmir to generate more electricity, but that river then flows into Pakistan, and that they need the water to irrigate their fields, and that they've already said that if India cuts down on their water, there will be a nuclear war. So, and this is happening. There's increasing tension between Egypt and other countries on the Nile, like Ethiopia and Tanzania and Uganda, because water. If you don't have water, you die. If you don't have enough to eat, you can last for a while. But in a very short period of time, if there's no water, people die. So we're really concerned to get a handle on this. Why is this happening, and what do we need to do about it? North Americans, us, use 6 times as much water per year as Africans. The world uses 20 to 25% of its fresh water to manufacture stuff. Pollutants and untreated sewage kills waterways around the world. Increasingly, there are predictions by experts of armed conflicts over the decreasing supply of water around the world, not just corporations buying it up, but people going to war over it.
This is not just a fad, it's not just a secular movement. It is something that reflects back on our faith and our duty to really respect this gift that God has given us. And in that, water is, obviously part of it.
By 2025, 1.8 billion people will be in regions with absolute water scarcity. There just won't be any. We can do a lot of things. One thing, we have to communicate to the government that there need to be changes. For example, right now there's thing going on called fracking. We're so wild for carbon-based fuels that we're drilling for natural gas up in the Marcellus Shale. And it means that they're cutting through shale, and then the gas is getting into the groundwater. But people want the gas so much that they don't really care. Or water bottles, when we put them into the landfill, they do all kinds of terrible things to the environment, which affects the water. People buy 3 water bottles a day, the average person. And then we need to contribute more to places like Africa where they don't have enough water. This is very important for Christians and for Catholics. Jesus said he was the water of life. If there's no water, it's going to be pretty hard for Christians to have life, or anybody else for that matter. So I'm hoping that we'll start to get the word out. Everybody knows, well, our members all know, say nuclear weapons are a problem, but now we need people to know that the water shortage is a problem too.
Cause and effect, very powerful stuff.
Yeah, definitely some food for thought there.
Yeah, well, stay tuned. We'll have much more Currents coming up straight ahead.
When we return, we'll have the day's headlines, including the church named 6 new saints this weekend, including one for Canada and the very first one for Australia. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, honoring Brooklyn's immigrants as shining stars.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. The church has 6 new saints. Pope Benedict canonized them during a ceremony Sunday at the Vatican. We get details now from Rome Reports.
Some 80,000 pilgrims flooded St. Peter's Square for the canonization of 6 new saints. Among them was the first Australian saint, as well as 1 Canadian, a Polish saint, 1 Spanish, and 2 Italians. The canonization is one of the most solemn ceremonies in the Catholic Church. During the ritual, the Pope prayed the Litany of Saints and then read the canonization rite in Latin, the official language of the Church.
Beatus Stanislaum Kazimierczyk, Andriam Beset, Candida Maria Maiesu, Cipitria Bariola, Maria Macruce Mechelop, Juliam Salzano, et Baptistam Verano, Sanctos esse decernimus et definimus, ac Sanctorum Catalogo adscribimus, statuentes eos in universa Ecclesia, inter sanctos pia devotione recoli debere.
Honored guests included Polish President Bronislaw Komorowski, the foreign ministers of both Canada and Australia, and the Spanish Vice Minister of Justice. In his homily, the Pope reminded the crowd that all Christians must strive to be saints. The Pope also reflected on the lives of those honored. For example, the life of new saint Mother Candida Maria de Jesus Cipitria y Bariola.
Vivió para Dios y para lo que él más quiere, llegar a todos, llevarles a todos la esperanza que no vacila, especialmente a quienes más lo necesitan.
Benedict XVI did little to hide the excitement of canonizing the first Australian saint, Sister Mary MacKillop.
She dedicated herself as a young woman to the education of the poor in the difficult and demanding terrain of rural Australia, inspiring other women to join her in the first women's community of religious sisters of that country.
Sydney Archbishop Cardinal George Pell was among the Australian pilgrims in St. Peter's. He came to Rome accompanied by 8,000 people. Hours before the ceremony, he told Rome Reports, this was the largest expedition of Australians after the Second World War.
So it is an important sign of our maturing. What is also very interesting is that Australians generally are not just the Catholics, are also very pleased with this official recognition.
The ceremony culminated in the handing over of holy relics of the new saints. After the Mass, they were transferred to the Pope's private chapel. The pontiff will venerate them himself over the next few weeks.
Well, meantime, Pope Benedict says men who are preparing to become priests should not be discouraged by the clergy's sexual abuse scandal. In a papal letter to seminarians, the pontiff said, quote, even the most reprehensible abuse cannot discredit the priestly mission. Benedict also expressed shame and regret over the scandal and the harm it's caused the church. And he defended priestly celibacy, saying many ordained men have lived celibate lives while displaying authentic, pure, and mature humanity. Well, the Pope's trip to the UK last month may have been historic, but new numbers show it was also costly for the British Church. The trip reportedly left church coffers more than $5.5 million in the hole. The Catholic Herald reports the UK Catholic Church has raised a little over $10 million to pay for the trip so far, all from private donors. But the church's portion of the total cost of the trip is estimated to be nearly $16 million. A church spokeswoman says leaders will not know the actual cost of the trip for a few months.
Well, the head of the Vatican's apostolic visitation of women religious orders in the U.S. says the process is a lot more dialogue and a lot less investigation. In an interview with our Sunday visitor, Mother Mary Claire Malaya of the Apostles at the Sacred Heart of Jesus said that many women religious in the U.S. were initially fearful and even suspicious of the visitation and its motives. She said that's changed, though, and that religious orders are opening up to what she says is an invitation to self-reflection. Mother Mary Claire also said that another purpose of the visit is to find areas in which each congregation can improve so she and others can make recommendations to promote their vitality. She said she hopes to have her final report completed by the end of next year. Well, some of the 33 miners rescued last week in Chile returned to the site for Mass on Sunday. A mob of reporters greeted the men and their families as they arrived at what became known as Camp Hope. The service was held at the mouth of the mine, where the men spent more than 2 months underground. After Mass, some of the men helped tear down Camp Hope, where their families waited during the ordeal. And finally, Homer and Bart are Catholics. No, that's not the latest plot line of an episode of The Simpsons. It was actually a headline of an article in the Vatican newspaper, the Roman Observer. Despite the fact that Homer has an ongoing feud with unrelenting holy roller Ned Flanders, the newspaper praised the show for including prayer before meals and other Christian themes. It also noted that Homer actually converted to Catholicism in a 2005 episode of the show.
Who knew?
Yes.
Stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up.
Just ahead, priests and deacons from the Brooklyn Diocese convene, and we'll get a preview.
What better time for us to give each other the encouragement to stay focused, to stay faith-filled, and to stay working together.
Welcome back. Well, tomorrow night, a little bit of history will be made in the Diocese of Brooklyn. For the very first time, deacons and priests will gather together for a joint convocation in Douglaston.
Now, hundreds are expected to take part and hear from the keynote speaker, Boston's Cardinal Sean O'Malley. And to get a better idea of what all this means, I spoke last week with the Vicar for Pastoral Support, Father Joseph Fonte. Father, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this convocation that is upcoming, tell us a little bit about it, a little bit about the significance of this convocation in particular.
Okay, well, the priests of the Diocese of Brooklyn meet twice a year, both in the fall and the spring, for a convocation. And it's a time for an ongoing formation, study, reflection, prayer with the bishop and one another. It also builds fraternity. And we've always had a good response from our priests. They look forward to these gatherings. The Council of Priests, the Presbyteral Council, and the Deacons Council met individually, as they do, and they spoke about the need for a joint convocation. First in our history, to have the deacons and our priests together. And it was definitely a novel idea, and one that was very well received by the committees that were coming together to talk about it. And the bishop himself was very enthusiastic about it.
Right, he actually wrote about that in the tablet this past week. What were some of the reasons that were given, not by the bishop, of course, but by the priests and the deacons who met as to why they wanted to come together to do this for the first time?
Well, I think within the challenges of the church today, church meets challenges in every day of its history, there's definitely a need to be more collaborative, a need for the ministers of the church to be much more open and sensitive to one another, to be much more enthusiastic in their own service, but also to encourage one another's service to God's people. And so the challenges that we face here, especially in the Diocese of Brooklyn, with reconfiguration, with adjustments that have to be made in the life of our people, in the life of the diocese, in the life of its ministers, its priests, its deacons, its people, as we said, it's such an important time for us to come together. What better time for us to witness to each other and to give each other the encouragement to stay focused, to stay faith-filled, and to stay working together in the Lord's vineyard here in the Brooklyn, Queens area.
Is there any particular theme for the convocation? Is that kind of it, or is there another theme that kind of goes along?
We titled it Ita Missa Est, which is the Latin for the Mass is ended.
Right.
It's the one line in the liturgy that both priest and deacon say.
Nice.
So if deacon is there, surely it's his part. If priest is alone, he says it. So ita missa est, the mass is ended, go in peace. And so the whole idea was that it's the one thing we definitely share in common, that time at the altar, wishing people surely the peace, working for the peace. And so priest and deacons, let's include surely our bishops, together in peace, sowing the seeds of peace within our people.
Right. Now, Cardinal O'Malley will be there, I understand. What part will he play?
Well, he's our keynote. We're grateful that Cardinal O'Malley accepted Bishop DeMarz's invitation. He comes as a very esteemed leader in the church, well known, the Archbishop of Boston. He's had a vast history of service in the church, and in various ways he has shown great competence and service to priests and to deacons. And so we're hoping to receive from him the inspiration to do what we want to do here, is to deepen our fraternal support of each other and that encouragement, again, in joyful ministry to God's people. And so he'll be with us both for the prayer experience and a social. We'll have dinner together, and then we'll have his presentation. After his presentation, 2 of our priests and 2 of our deacons will do a little panel. Each will prepare a little response. 2 are going to respond to an aspect or 2 of the cardinal's presentation, and the other set, deacon priest, who are together working in a parish, will speak about their relationship and how that has been a support to one another in ministry.
All right. Well, Father Fonte, we're just out of time, but thank you so much for being here. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Matt.
it.
Nice to be with you.
Thanks. And we'll have more on the convocation coming up later in the week.
Meantime, stay with us. We'll be right back. When we return, the diocese honors immigrants who've given back to their adopted homeland.
I was suffering too much when I came to this country 40 years ago, and today I could give back to them with love the same way I received when I came here.
Well, finally tonight, the issue of immigration has been making national headlines for months now, but you know, here in Brooklyn, it's never out of the headlines. This is the city of immigrants after all, and we are reminded every day of the contributions that people from around the world have made here.
Certainly, and we had a big reminder of that on Friday night. The Diocese Office of Migration hosted the first of 2 annual awards dinners to honor the shining stars in Brooklyn's immigrant community, men and women from other countries who have made a real difference here.
Tonight's celebration is about immigrants, not the problem of immigration, not the burden of immigration, which some people keep talking about, not the fear of immigration, but the joy we experience every day when we look past this negative rhetoric and look around this room into the faces of each person here.
The people who are honored, the shining stars, more than being social activists on the political scene or on the global scene, are people who are on the local scene more than anything else. And their reward or their nomination for the award is because they have been charitable, they have been generous to each other, not to their parish necessarily, although most of them are, but helping other immigrants in need, helping other people from their country, that kind of thing. So these are not people who are famous for their political statements and their political action, but people who do simple things in a very extraordinary way.
From the Nigerian apostolate, Ms. Chiamena Duru.
This award means a lot. It makes you proud of your faith. It makes you proud of your religion. It makes you proud of your heritage. It means so much to me.
I was suffering too much when I came to this country 40 years ago, and today I could give back to them with love the same way I received when I came here.
Truly, it's important that we do stand together, politically as well as spiritually, because our political leaders need to hear our voice. We need to gain our citizenship and use our vote to make sure that our moral values that are so important to us, taught to us by our faith, are exercised in the public forum. The Diocese of Brooklyn is known as the Diocese of Immigrants. If we didn't have immigrants, we wouldn't have any diocese. Half of the people of the diocese, half of the Catholics, are foreign-born. So we find our home here. It's like the new Pentecost, that all of the people from various places come together, speaking different languages, having different cultures, but are together in one church. So it really is a wonderful experience to see the new Pentecost come alive here in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam, God bless America, my home sweet home.
Oh, for all the debate and all the rhetoric over the immigration issue that you hear out there, you look at just as Monsignor Marino said, all the faces in that room, and you really appreciate how much and the contributions that have been made by immigrants to the Diocese of Brooklyn and the country as a whole. I mean, we're not only a city of immigrants here, it's a nation of immigrants too.
That's true. I mean, from my Italian ancestors that I was telling you about the other day, came over, from Ellis Island, from Italy, back in the day, and helped build railroads and all of those things, to these folks here in the diocese. And the thing that I think is most fascinating is that it will take sometimes someone from a native country to help a newcomer here along. And so, because they speak the language, they know the landscape, they know the differences, and so it's really great that they can give back in that way that is so unique to them. Yeah, they can use their experience here, of course, since they've been here for a while. They can use their experience to teach new people, and then they just kind of keep passing it along. And it makes the country, I think, richer and a lot more interesting when you have people from all these different backgrounds. There you go. Well, that is it for tonight. Now, coming up tomorrow, 2 weeks before the midterm elections, we'll look at an issue of interest to Catholic voters: respecting life. Meantime, remember, we are always online at currentsny.net, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. Until next time, I'm Francesca Maxime. And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.